their ballots. Dedicated poll workers strived to ensure a smooth voting. Citizen observers were at all polling centers, and journalists provided regular reports. This was a very strong and encouraging sign. However, there were also issues that we, as a friend of Sierra Leone, observe and are imperative to address. Firstly, political violence shrank the space of political participation. This was observed by the EU Election Observation Mission in at least 6 districts. We also saw disproportionate use of force by security agencies on several occasions. And here I want to stress, violence has no place in elections, neither here in Sierra Leone nor anywhere else on the globe. Also, I want to speak about the tabulation of results that proved to be a key issue, a tipping point. The ECSL did not ensure transparency at this very crucial stage of the process. Our observers, as well as citizen observers at the tally center, could not conduct a meaningful observation of the tabulation of results. Despite repeated calls from observers, the ECSL did not publish the disaggregated result data. Lack of transparency and limitation on independent scrutiny leaves space for doubt and stains an election. This takes me to the most important part of our final report, the recommendations. The elections highlighted an urgent need for reforms to enhance transparency and inclusion. To build overall trust in future electoral processes, and we as observers and friends of Sierra Leone have identified 7 priority areas where result steps are necessary to uphold regional and international standards for democratic elections and to help democracy strive. In total, there are 21 recommendations, but we found 7 priority areas. Our first 3 priority recommendations advocate for an enhanced transparency in the conduct of elections. The first step would be the publication of the final voter registry per polling station. Our second recommendation calls for publishing detailed procedure for the tabulation and establishing a robust and transparent results processing system. Our third recommendation encourages publication of comprehensive results data per polling stations online. Those recommendations are key trust-building measures. The next 3 recommendations are to fight impunity and to promote the rule of law. Namely, we recommend ensuring safety and security of all candidates, and to promptly hold perpetrators of violence accountable. We also call for an enforcement of restrictions on use of various state resources for political gain, and for ensuring transparency and accountability in campaign finances. The 7th priority recommendation is about genuinely protecting freedom of expression online and offline by removing ambiguous definitions related to the cyber crimes. Those are the priority areas we have identified, but let me speak about some other points, very important observations that we have made. First, we saw positive steps and encouraging legal reform aiming to promote women participation in political life. I want to stress that those are very important reforms. Following these elections, 30% of elected members of parliament are women. However, while the ECSL set up a system to ensure that the new rules to promote women political participation, political parties made efforts to circumvent it. Hence, I encourage political parties to make a reinforced commitment for greater gender parity, which will further enhance women's participation in public and political life. Another positive takeaway from the 2023 elections was the first ever national fact-checking initiative, iVerify. It was set up to equip voters with the reliable information and to safeguard the truth. Today, when disinformation and misinformation campaigns more and more often aim to distort reality, it's time to join forces and develop inclusive media and digital literacy programs. And here I'm not only encouraging civil society and media, but also on political actors and state institutions, as well as global tech platforms to tackle disinformation and misinformation. It is important to continue working together for a better informed society. Now, a few words about the importance of an independent, non-partisan scrutiny of elections. During these 2023 elections, civil society organizations played a crucial role. They engaged in voter education. Activities all across the country. They scrutinized various aspects of elections, and their timely reports offered voter reliability and non-partisan assessment of the process. Citizen Observer also conducted a credible parallel vote tabulation and voiced concerns. It proved the maturity and the resolve of Sierra Leone civil society. Let me stress that it is essential for any democracy all across the globe that fact-based criticism is taken with respect and in good faith. Intimidation, punctuated by disinformation, has no place in a country whose leadership values freedom for expression and respects human rights. Now, after the elections, it is encouraging to see the establishment of a National Election Systems Review Committee. This could be the first step towards a comprehensive review of legal and operational aspects of elections. However, I would like to stress that the committee's success will hinge on its ability to bring together stakeholders representing all political and civil society spectrum, on its ability to create the space of inclusion, trust, constructive dialogue, and consensus to bring about the adequate electoral reforms. I welcome that this committee aims to take into account the recommendations of electoral observers. I sincerely believe that the recommendations of our electoral observation mission can be a useful contribution to this important process. Let us all keep in mind that citizen observers and civil society organizations played a pivotal role in these elections. They monitored different aspects and stages of the process and offered voters a non-partisan assessment of elections. And now, looking forward, their engagement in the electoral reform process will be paramount. I sincerely hope that reform proposals, including those made by the review committee, will be the fruit of an inclusive, open, and plural dialogue. Our task in Sierra Leone as Election Observation Mission is now completed, and the process ahead is in your hands. We have handed over our report to the ECSL and other electoral stakeholders, while the EU delegation will follow up with interlocutors in relation to what comes next. Let me conclude by stressing that it remains crucial to further foster democratic processes with a strong political will of all stakeholders in the society, to promote inclusion and transparency, and most importantly, to build public confidence. As a friend and an ally to Sierra Leone, the EU stands ready to support Sierra Leonean stakeholders and people in those efforts and in the implementation of these recommendations. It was a privilege to lead this mission, and I would like to thank all Sierra Leonean people and stakeholders from across the political spectrum, from all walks of life, for your professional cooperation and for their readiness to share your thoughts with this mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali. We will take some pictures. We will take some questions from you, of course. If you can state your name and the outlet that you represent at the beginning of the question, that would be very good.
Anthony Vanis, my name is, I work for Epic Radio Management for TFM and Sleep Television on Channel 37. So if the European Union were to put a percentage on the just concluded 2022 elections, within the range of 1 to 10, what will be your percentage that you will give to the elections?
Well, we don't put a number on we do not evaluate through putting a number on how the election went. What we do is, and is in our mandate, is of course to observe the elections before the election day, during the election day, and post-election day, and then conclude with the observations that we have made, which some part of it I just presented, and some part of it I should also say that you will be able to access directly after this press meeting.
So, Edward Coker from Africa Sleep TV. I have two questions for you. So the first question is, why so long before presenting this report? And the second, which you said in your report, the process ahead is in our hands. What are these processes, and why is the European Union leaving these processes in the hands of some unions? Two questions. The first question is, why so long before presenting the report? And the second question is, you said in your report, process ahead is in our hands. Why this statement that the process is in our hands in 7 minutes, and why is the European Union not involved in the process ahead?
Well, usually take a couple of months before the conclusion of the final report is made, and this is common practice after all the elections. And that is to ensure that the final report is as comprehensive as possible, as correct as possible, and we have gathered all the angles that are important. And to ensure also that the recommendations that are being put forward is addressing the challenges that has been observed.
Okay, so the second question is why you said, the process ahead is in our hands. So why is it that the European Union is leaving the process in the hands of Sierra Leoneans? And what does Sierra Leoneans hold the process ahead?
Well, the implementation, from the side of the European Union, we have addressed the election through the recommendation, the 21 recommendations, which we'll be able to read after this press conference. However, we are, of course, if there is any need of assistance, the EU is ready to assist in the implementations of the recommendations that we have put forward. But in the end, it is up to the election committees and commissions in the countries and the institutions that are in charge to take on and accommodate those recommendations that are given by the different election observation missions. But we are, of course, prepared in all ways possible, if needed, by Sierra Leone to assist in the implementation.
I write for the Calabash newspaper. My question, this is not the first time the European Union has been put forward recommendations when it comes to process in Sierra Leone. And over the years, we've been doing that. So, from the previous recommendations to this one, what has changed when it comes to the electoral process in Sierra Leone? Is there any change when it comes to development and all? Then secondly, you spoke about the electoral committee, the vote committee that has been set up by His Excellency. And the Vice President, who was the one in it for this current government, is heading that particular committee. What is your take?
Well, to start with, on the issue of recommendations, every and each election is one of a kind. Therefore, also, when a new election observation mission is put in place and has been observing the special and specific election, recommendations will be, of course, addressing those observations that we have made during that specific election. And when it comes to the review committee, we, of course, hope and we are that the recommendations will be accommodated within the process, and look forward also to if there should be any kind of a need of assistance from our side, from the side of Sierra Leone and the committee, to help out in the process. But who is leading the committees? It is in the hand of course, the country and Sierra Leone. But we are here in case of need of any kind of assistance.
The name is Elvis Sama. I'm working for the Mercy TV, normally civic hour. Now I want to just give you two captions, two sayings: beating the dead horse, and then chewing more than you can bite. Now the European Union knows exactly that the elections that took place had over 11,000.8 polling stations, and the observers were not even up to 1,000. And then you are coming up to give words that like transparency and the other jargons and comments you have been giving about our elections. Don't you think you are biting more than you are chewing? That's what I'm looking at.
I would say that we had over approximately 104 even, the specific number of election observers at the election day. And we had many election observers, long-term observers, including also the core team, previous to the election day. And those stayed also after, a couple of weeks after the election day. So in this context, I would say that we have got as good view as possible, but of course, the EU election observation mission is a part of a bigger also election observation mission. AU also had its election observation mission. ECOWAS had also their election observation missions. But with this said, I think that I can very comfortably say that what we are presenting is as holistic as possible, and with quite many election observers, and gives as fair view as possible. But of course, this is based on the election observations that we have made. And we hope that these recommendations that we have been put forward will also meet the feelings that the people of Sierra Leone or some people might have had, and could address those shortcomings that other actors have also seen. So these are recommendations from our sides and the observations that we have made in the the places that we have observed, but we had quite significant amount electoral observers.
I am Mohammed Al-Kamal, writing for Davis Hope newspaper. In your report, you mentioned that the elections results were not as expected. And now last week, Tuesday, the flag bearer of the All People's Congress, APC, Sabura Kamara, claimed that indeed the election results were rigged. Don't you think saying that the election results were not as expected gives a firm
Can you please try? Can you please try again?
Well, I am Mohammed Al-Kamal, writing for Davis Hope newspaper. Last week Tuesday, the flag bearer of the All People's Congress reaffirmed their stance that indeed the June 24 elections were rigged. And now you are saying that the election results were not anticipated. Don't you think you are giving the main opposition party more strength to build on their stance that indeed the election results were fraudulently rigged against them?
Well, we don't think, or what we do as the EU Election Observation Mission is to present the observations that we have made. And based on the observation that we have made, not anyone else, but that the 104 observers from the EU have made, we conclude and make a report out of it, and then we also present the recommendations that I mentioned. So everything that I presented by now, and that will and is within the final report, is based only, solemnly, on the observations that we have made.
My name is Solomon Zulu. You spoke about, the EU having 104 elections observed, and we have more than 11,000 polling stations. Now you said the tabulations were not transparent. Do you think or understand that the elections are governing severally? They are governed by laws, and the ECSL went through the laws and we dealt with the law governing the electoral processes? That's the question.
When we observe elections, we of course take into account the national laws, the regional regulation, and international regulations. Some of the challenges that we have seen is addressed in the final reports that you will be able to access on shortcomings and areas of improvements. And those 21 recommendations will also meet the challenges that we have seen. And there is, of course, there are areas of improvement in some of the areas I just mentioned, on the 7 priority areas, for example. And the main focus of our final report is actually on transparency, inclusion, and accountability. And that, of course, means that all the institutions should, and we hope and that all the institutions that is affected and has been part of the elections will take on the 21 recommendations that we have made. Of course, that also includes the ECSL, but other institutions also, and other actors.
Sir, I come back, I think, for Salute Times newspaper. You said you put forward recommendations to the government in order to act on them. Let's imagine that the government does not act on the recommendation. Do you have anything in mind to either punish or compel the government to work on all the recommendations? Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the questions. Well, usually what the European Union does after an election observation mission is to follow it up with a follow-up mission to see how far the implementation of the recommendation have come. So we hope to be able also to do it in this case, and we are prepared if there is any kind of need to assist in the implementation of these recommendations that are based on our observations. But usually the European Union also follows up with a follow-up mission.
Yeah, my name is Abadi Chube. I work for People Africa Radio. Since the election, June 24, 2023, up to date, Sierra Leoneans are relying on the European Union and other partners. Now that you have said about this final report, what will be the next stage?
Next stage is that we now officially have handed over the final report. I have myself met the President earlier today. I have myself met the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I have met representatives of the ECSL and also, of course, the Vice President. And we have also showed our continued commitment through standing prepared for assisting in the implementation if needed. But with this press conference and these days, the conclusion of the election observation mission, or the election observation mission, will be concluded. Nevertheless, as I just mentioned, usually the EU also follows up with a follow-up mission to have a continued dialogue with those responsible or in charge of the process, the continuing process in the specific countries, also in Sierra Leone. So we are now finally handing over the final report, and is then ready to assist.
Yes, I am Inka Taleba, of course, acting president of Civil Society in Sierra Leone. Is there any recommendation for a rerun of the elections? One. Two, of course, elections are meant for reflection of the votes of the people. And in such a situation where it's controversial, do we have any withdrawal of support from the European Union if the recommendations are not implemented by government? These are the two questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I can just once again reiterate that our observations and also the recommendations are putting the light on the challenges and addresses the challenges through recommending for future elections proposals on recommendations. So, and it is not in our mandate to decide on any kind of rerun or not. What we do is to observe and put forward recommendations on proposals for future elections. And as I once again mentioned, we have usually a follow-up mission to see how the recommendations have been accommodated. That is our way of showing that we stand ready for the implementations of the recommendations. Of course, our presence here in Sierra Leone is our commitment towards the people of Sierra Leone and for the democratic processes. But what is in our mandate is to observe and recommend recommendations that we have made.
My name is Koka. I write for the New Number newspaper. You were about 10% covering the election nationwide. What yardstick did you use to give a holistic figure of how the elections was run? I mean, during the day of the result?
Well, once again, this the final report is based on the presence of our election observers in all 16 districts. And in all tabulation centers also, I should say. So we have based on our observations with over 100 observers, it's significant amount of observers. Based then our final report based, we have concluded our final report based on those observations. So this is our observations, and we hope that this could be a part of addressing the challenges that we have seen and observed, and that we have also heard from different stakeholders that they have seen.
Good evening. My name is Angelo, working for the Sarah Reporters. My question here is, I know of course the European Union doesn't have the right to announce results before the ECSL. So if you say you have problems with the tabulation, right? So what do you think the matters will be like in 2023?
Well, we do not, that's not in our mandate, and we do not make decisions on the conclusions of who won or not won. What we do is we observe the election processes. So, and the process actually starts before the election day, during the campaign, and then it continues during the election day, and then it also continues post-election day. So it's the whole election process per se that we are looking at, not the results, as in who won or who didn't win. So the process is what we are observing.
Yes, Solomon Wilson, editor of Sankara newspaper. You said there were problems with tabulations. Well, we want to raise one thing, that elections are governed by law. And our election in 2023 was conducted according to the laws of Sierra Leone, which means there is no law that says we should publish disaggregated results or whatever. It's a recommendation which I think we will look into in the future. I just want to thank the EU for taking the pains to come over here. But I think our elections were conducted according to our laws, and there is no reason for anybody to say that tabulations were not done according to the laws of Sierra Leone. If the elections were done according to the laws of Sierra Leone, then everything was credible, and the winner is the winner.
But please, our chief observer is speaking. Can you please refrain? Thank you.
Well, we do observe it based on national laws, and this concerns, of course, all election observation missions that we make. National law, regional law, and international, or national law, regional and international commitments. And there are regional and international standards also. And those recommendations that we make is, of course, based on the international standards. And based on the observations that we have made. And we hope, of course, that the recommendations will be taken into account.
One more question.
Right. My name is Ali Kaloko, editor-in-chief, Sarah Reporters Online. Of course, we know when it comes to elections, I want to reference from His Excellency. Of course, there are contentious issues. But you as European body, the people of this country strongly depends on you when it comes to recommendations, findings, and also observations. So if you are now saying you have left everything in the hands of Sierra Leone government, of which some people are saying they do not trust the process. So what I'm trying to say is that it's like you are leaving the people of this country in a state of limbo, whereas we don't know Some are saying they're going to be A1, some are saying they're going to be A1. We have some are claiming there are laws that govern this country, and you are also saying we have international laws. So you are putting all of us in a state of limbo. So we want to know where actually are we going as a nation?
Because the election observation mission has concluded it doesn't mean that the dialogue between the European Union and with Sierra Leone has ended. Of course, the election observation mission is independent from other EU institutions because we were here, we observed, and then based on our recommendations on our observations. And we usually also follow it up with a follow-up mission. At the same time, there is a continued cooperation and dialogue between Sierra Leone and the European Union. And I want to reiterate and stress that we stand ready for the people of Sierra Leone to assist in if there are any kind of need for the implementations of their recommendations. Because the recommendations is based on our observations and it's based on dialogue with different actors.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will take 2 last questions, and our final report should be published online soon, so you will be able to take a look by yourself.
Yeah, my name is Ahmed from Input. Initially, according to your statement, you mentioned 2 state institutions that they are very poor in their performance during and before and after the elections. Those 2 institutions are the National Security Forces and ECSL. According to your recommendation, do you think, based on their poor performance before and during after the election, lead to the beginning of the elections?
Yes, understandable.
We can take both questions.
Last question.
We stand ready for the people was a statement you made just now. And one of the recommendations you said entirely is the ambiguity of the cybercrime. Can you please dissect what is ambiguity of the cybercrime? Because we wish to know as journalists. What are these ambiguities that you recommended as part of the report you're going to give them? What are the ambiguity of the cybercrime?
First, the question on the work of the National Security and ECSL, if I heard it correctly. And there are, as I also stressed in my speech, there are challenges that need to be addressed. We saw incidents of violence occurring, and violence nowhere on the globe during elections should be accepted. So this means that there are challenges that need to be addressed, and in the recommendations we also put forward recommendations on the areas how to address the challenges that occurred with security, for example, and that to ensure that those that has been behind the violence that has occurred are also in the future rapidly being put in front of justice, that perpetrators also are put in front of justice as soon as possible to ensure the smooth and violence-free elections for all candidates, but also for the people when they go to the polling station to cast their votes, because everybody needs to feel that they can cast their votes in a safe and secure manner. And the other question was on the cybercrime law. Okay. So I will read from the recommendations. Protect freedom of expression by clearly aligning the definition of cyber terrorism, cyber stalking, cyberbullying, and incendiary information with the relevant regional and international standards. So it's cyber, as I mentioned, cyber terrorism and cyberbullying, among others.
Thank you very much. That would be all from our side. Some hard copies of reports are waiting for you outside this room, so you can take them. As I mentioned before, also soft copies should be already on our website. So, thank you.
I just also want to finally thank all of you for being here today. And if there are any kind of further questions, we are still here, or any of the answers are also in the final. Thank you very much.
Well, it's not Fox Media, and today we did outside the European Union observers and don't give them final outcome of the 2023 June 24 elections. We just pass inside Salon, so they don't give them report and final report as a union, and then also make some recommendations and within to them say it was necessary for the government and also other people and able for act on. So we don't take with time, don't come for giving up this wonderful press conference, and member say Mina Justice CM Tijan. We can make sure say when I get this press conference from the European Union. Don't forget for like, don't forget for follow, and don't forget for the share, so that anytime when we come online, you will be the first person for Gateway. So till we meet again, we want to say ta-ta.